the trip. Chapter 7. Thursdays. Colonie didn't need an introduction anymore. It existed for them, the way certain streets do, always half-lit, always ready. Thursday, again. Same table, same hum. The staff knew their pace by now. A table that didn't rush, didn't flirt with chaos, but still tipped like they believed in fairness. The chalkboard by the bar said, "Oysters are back." No announcements. No one mentioned it, though everyone read it. The music was a cover of something electronic played too slow to recognize. A saxophone pretending to be memory. Condensation traced lazy arcs down the carafes. A waiter replaced napkins with one hand while adjusting the light with the other, the rhythm of practiced competence. Ethan arrived first, or maybe just earliest enough that it looked accidental. He'd stopped timing his entrances months ago. Now he came when work ended or when he decided it had. He nodded at the bartender, who poured his usual without asking. The phone went face down beside the coaster. A quiet act of civility. Camille was next, coat already folded in her arm, expression tuned to whatever the day had left unfinished. "Still standing," Ethan said. "Leaning," she corrected, sliding into the seat opposite. The corners of her mouth held the faint suggestion of a smile that had learned to wait its turn. Marcus arrived mid-sentence, voice catching from outside traffic. "You seen the delivery bots near Atlantic lately? They move like they're unionized." Ethan didn't look up. "They are. They just don't know it yet." Camille smirked, already flagging the thought for later. Art and automation always met somewhere between irony and fear. Alice appeared behind Marcus, smelling faintly of rain, though it hadn't rained. Her watch caught the light as she unbuttoned her coat, that small metronome of presence she never flaunted. "Everyone breathing?" she asked. "Defensively," Marcus said. "Good, we adapt." The table began filling itself, chairs shifting, menus ignored. Daniel arrived halfway through the first round, slid into the last space without a word, like a sentence completing itself. Charlotte swept in with calm energy, making the server lean in by instinct. "Whatever's fast and doesn't argue," she said, setting her phone face down beside Ethan's. A small gesture of shared boundary. No introductions, no rules. Just the slow realignment of 6 people who'd been orbiting different weeks. The first bottle came without asking. A Sancerre, same one they'd settled into months ago when the sommelier stopped pretending they might change their minds. Charlotte checked the label anyway, then nodded once. Ritual, not review. Camille watched the pour like a curator checking lighting. Alice waited for the quiet between pours before saying, "Everyone's still pretending to care about natural wine until someone invents emotional sulfites." Daniel half smiled. "You'd bill that brand in a week." "I'd trademark it first," Alice said. The talk drifted, half jokes, half notes. Marcus complained about how every investor deck he saw now had AI enhanced on page 1. Ethan countered, "That's how you hide you've got nothing." Charlotte raised her glass. "It's also how you raise your next round." "Working on it," Marcus said, dry. A table over, someone was explaining NFTs to someone too polite to interrupt. Their waiter adjusted the speaker volume just enough to rescue them. Camille broke the pause. "The gallery's installing a new sound piece next week. 27 minutes of rainfall recorded under a bridge in Kyoto. It's strangely clean." Marcus grinned. "People pay for that when they could just stand under the FDR." "Different humidity," she said. Ethan nodded at that, like it was a legal fact. Daniel leaned in slightly, voice low. "You see the leak about Stratinia's pilot in Midtown?" Charlotte didn't blink. I see everything about Stratinia's pilot in Midtown. That's not denial, Daniel said. No, Charlotte replied. It's clarity. Alice shifted the topic with the ease of someone redirecting a client crisis. Netflix finally killed autoplay intros, she said. Half my clients lost their sense of identity overnight. Ethan raised a brow. You mean they'll have to write openings again? Or learn endings, she said. Camille glanced toward the kitchen pass, where a cook plated something that glowed faintly pink under the heat lamp. Octopus? The waiter caught her look. Spanish, braised in Rioja. You'll want the lemon after. Always, she said. Their food arrived in stages. Oysters, then burrata with burnt honey, then a plate of bitter greens that Marcus eyed like an assignment. Remember when we used to do burgers here? He said. Ethan. We were younger. Sodium tolerance was higher. Charlotte. Time tolerance was higher. Alice lifted her glass. To reduction, culinary and otherwise. They clinked, but quietly, the sound more punctuation than toast. Conversation found new lanes. Daniel mentioned a source who'd gone silent after a government inquiry. Marcus confessed he'd started sleeping 4 hours a night on purpose to see if it changes anything. Camille said she'd met someone from Marseille who still thought New York galleries were romantic. Ethan said nothing until Alice asked if he was listening. Sure, he said, just deciding what deserves a record. The playlist turned to a slowed-down version of Frank Ocean's Pink plus White. Camille noticed first. Every restaurant plays Frank Ocean when it wants to feel like memory. Better than Drake when it wants to feel like ambition, Charlotte said. They laughed, a clean, short sound that warmed the wood. By the second bottle, a Barolo this time bold enough to slow the table, the conversation had thinned into overlapping diagonals. Not fragments, exactly, more like parallel pages in the same book. Charlotte and Marcus were leaning toward the middle, voices low but clear. She drew shapes on the condensation ring left by her glass, straight lines, no loops. They're calling it a pilot, she said. Means they've already built the machine. Marcus's smile tilted, or they're hoping I'll power it. She didn't look up. Don't mistake proximity for leverage. He studied the table's grain as if it were a design brief. That should be a t-shirt. She smiled without showing teeth. Only if it's limited edition. Across from them, Camille was telling Alice about the seating chart for her brother's wedding. They keep asking if I'll bring someone, as if that's part of the menu. Alice sipped. It usually is. I said I'd bring art direction, Camille said. That'll clash with the flowers, Alice replied. Perfect, Camille said, and smiled properly this time. Daniel had half-turned toward Ethan, who was already half-turned toward nothing. You ever think we're all just moving noise around? Daniel asked. Ethan considered. Noise pays well. For some. You want better pay, pick a louder frequency. Daniel smirked. And become a pundit? Ethan shook his head. No, just don't whisper truth to a building that sells glass. Daniel laughed into his drink. You still edit people mid-sentence? Only when they deserve it, Ethan said. From somewhere near the bar came the sharp crack of ice hitting tile. The waiter didn't flinch. Outside, a siren bled down Atlantic, distant enough to register as color more than sound. Alice leaned back, half listening to everyone, half composing something in her head. She'd spent the week in rooms where clients asked to be authentic at scale. Now, watching the group's faces shift under the slow amber light, she thought how scale always ruined the good parts. Sound, emotion, wine. She looked down at the label on the Barolo, Giacomo Conterno, 2018, a year where nothing behaved. Who ordered this? She asked. Habit, Ethan said. Habit's expensive, she said. Consistency's cheaper than regret, he answered. Camille raised her glass slightly, acknowledging the line. The waiter replaced the empty oyster tray with a small plate of lamb skewers and something charred but sweet. Eggplant or maybe shishito. No one corrected him when he called it chef's choice. Sometimes choice was permission enough. For a few minutes the table went quiet. Not awkward, not polite. Just a pause that came from knowing each other's breathing rhythms too well. A bike drifted past the window. Its LED display blinked through the glass like a coded message. "Remember when we thought this was temporary?" Charlotte said. Marcus frowned. "What, the dinners or the city?" "Either." Ethan cut in softly. "Temporary just means you haven't named the permanence yet." Camille nodded once. "That's why artists don't use that word." Alice. "PR does. It invoices better." The laugh this time was longer, easier. It filled the space just enough to make the quiet that followed feel chosen. Daniel's phone buzzed once on the table, a muted hum against wood. He didn't look at it. Alice noticed and approved. Camille noticed and didn't. Someone, no one was sure who, ordered espresso martinis they didn't need. The drinks arrived like punctuation. Short, dark, lightly shaking. Charlotte looked at hers, then at Marcus. "You know what happens if you keep running on caffeine and optimism?" "Bright loop energy," he said. "Burnout," she said. "Different spelling." He smiled. "We're testing a renewable model." "Good," she said. "Start with yourself." The group caught the tone and let it pass without commentary. They'd learned when not to translate each other. The night stretched the way good fabric does, holding shape, losing tension. Plates were cleared, crumbs dusted like evidence. The Barolo gave way to small glasses of Amaro, the color of rusted copper. Someone, maybe Ethan, had ordered Fernet Branca without announcing it. That was usually how it appeared. Outside the front window, Atlantic Avenue was all blur. Headlights, a bus sighing at the curb, a man dragging a cello case through drizzle that hadn't committed to being rain. Inside, the booth had become its own weather. Ethan leaned back, sleeves rolled, gaze fixed somewhere between the empty bottle and the reflection of himself in the glass. "You still holding Bright Loop?" he asked Marcus, voice low enough to stay theirs. "For now," Marcus said. "Depends who blinks first, markets or Eric." Ethan gave a small nod, the kind that meant he'd already done the math. "I added to Western Digital last week," he said. "They're sitting on more capacity than what's shown." Marcus looked up, intrigued. "Betting they'll run hotter on memory demand?" "Betting the world keeps forgetting," Ethan said. "And someone has to store the proof." Marcus smiled. "That's either cynical or genius." Ethan drained the rest of his glass. "Why pick?" The remark floated long enough for Charlotte to catch it midair, though she didn't comment. She was watching the bartender, same one every Thursday, refill water glasses with the precision of a ritual that survived every shift change. It was what she liked about this place. Systems that didn't announce themselves. Alice was speaking softly to Camille now, a tone that sat halfway between comfort and strategy. "Marseille guy coming for the opening?" Camille shook her head. "It's better when admiration stays abroad." Alice smirked. "Geographical therapy." "I approve." They shared the kind of look only women who'd outgrown patience can give each other. Daniel had gone quiet again, elbows on the table, thumb tracing the rim of his glass. He wasn't brooding, he was cataloging. The way Charlotte's hand hovered over her phone but didn't touch it. The way Alice's watch ticked steady against the pulse at her wrist. The way Marcus's expression softened when no one was asking anything of him. It was the journalist's disease, observing affection like evidence. From the speakers, a remix of Radiohead's Reckoner began, slower, heavier, like someone had submerged the track underwater. Camille whispered, "They always end the night on nostalgia." Ethan said, "Because it tips better." Charlotte corrected him, "Because it hides the check." The bill arrived, folded once, placed dead center. Ethan reached first, Marcus countered. They didn't argue, just did the math silently, each sliding a card forward with the ease of long habit. Charlotte added a note in the margin of the receipt. Service steady, table well-timed. She liked rewarding precision more than charm. When they finally stood, the room seemed to recalibrate. The waiter nodded the nod reserved for regulars who treat the place like punctuation, never too long, never too loud. Coats were lifted, chairs realigned to neutrality. Outside, the air carried that late Brooklyn electricity that feels borrowed from the river. A light mist caught the streetlights and turned them theatrical. Camille zipped her coat to the collar and headed east without ceremony. Daniel checked the time, murmured something about deadlines that didn't exist. Alice lingered near the curb, phone still silent, expression easier than it had been all week. Marcus and Ethan paused under the awning. "Western Digital," Marcus said, still considering it. Ethan shrugged. "Look at the one-year chart. It's faith in compression." Marcus laughed quietly. "You always did trade like a poet." "And you always built companies like a gambler," Ethan said. It wasn't accusation or praise, just description. They clasped shoulders once, old school, before splitting directions. Charlotte waited until they'd gone before turning toward the subway. She walked with her hands deep in her coat pockets, pace exact, mind already translating the night into motion plans for tomorrow. Pace before sequence. Teeth before sugar. She smiled at her own hypocrisy, advice she gave, rarely followed. Behind her, Colonie's door shut with its soft, practiced click. Inside, the waiter erased the chalkboard note, leaving a faint white echo of the words, "No announcements." The city carried on, unbriefed, but perfectly on time.